Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder on this first Sunday of October. Hello, my name is Steve Todd, and I'm pleased to be your worship leader for today's service. We welcome all at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. All of you are welcome, and all of you are sacred. Whatever your past was like, whatever this present moment is like for you, we invite you to journey into the future together. We also welcome all of you who are joining us via the internet. The chat box will be open if you need to get a message to us. If you are a new online visitor, please email our office administrator, Amy Zen, and let us know how you found us. You will find her email listed in the Zoom chat. And our church website has a great deal of information about UUCB, our programs and our activities. So you can check that out as well. Now, please ensure that your microphones remain muted as you join with the others gathered for worship.
Friends, it is our 7th Sunday of outdoor worship. I see you wearing, yes, that deserves some applause. I see everyone's wearing like an extra layer from when we started 6 weeks ago. We'll keep on outside until the weather forces us in, at which point we'll live stream from inside the sanctuary and very closely watch the COVID numbers. The magic number we're looking for is 50 cases per week per 100,000. And then we can all be back inside again as you're comfortable, masked inside the sanctuary. We were there this summer. We were there by the end of July. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get back there, and it's not going to be easy in the meantime. But I want to start with a word of gratitude for our tech crew, these folks who week in and week out have solved problems, figured out Zoom, done troubleshooting on the camera, the mics, the everything. And if that sounds appealing to you, talk with them after the service. They could use a few more warm bodies. We begin with these words for the call to worship from a friend and colleague, the Reverend Erica Hewitt. It says this: as we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You don't have to do anything to earn the love in this community. You don't have to be braver, smarter, stronger, better than you are in this moment exactly to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, and your seeking mind, no matter how busy, and your animal heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this hour together. Come, let us worship.
Out of ruins and out of the smoke, out of our night of struggle, and we see a ray of hope, one pale thin ray, reaching for the day we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels. We can build a city of love. special plaster. Take my hand, I'll take you home. We'll see nations rise in each other's eyes. We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels. We can build a city of love. When your heart is all but shattered, when your faith is all but killed, you can give up bitter and battered, or you slowly start to build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And we can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of love. City of love. City of love.
Thanks so much, Tracy, and welcome. Good to have you here today. Take a moment to speak with the kids of all ages, including those online, including those who are very much older. In our church, we are all learners. We're all explorers. We're all seekers, and we're all teachers. And that's not just the adults, that's the kids too. We're a church of an open mind and a loving heart and helping hands. I'll take a moment today to talk about your helping hands. So everyone, hold your hands out in front of you, in person or online, and take a look at your hands. Take a look at your hands. Think of all the things you have done with them already today, and then hold them up high and take a look around at everyone else's hands. Zoom folks, see if you can get them in frame. Each of your hands is special, and each of the hands around you is special. Okay, you can relax for a moment. And if you like, you can close your eyes and think of all these hands. These are the hands of your friends, even the ones you don't know, even the ones you haven't met yet. These are the hands that pet a cat or a dog. These are hands that make cookies and scrub bubbles and brush teeth. These are your hands, which snuggle a teddy bear, which paint and make music and wipe away tears, which gently touch babies and hug parents or grandparents or aunties or uncles, brothers, sisters, little ones. These hands hug you when you feel sad. When we reach our hands out for one another, we're using them to say, you're important to me, and I care about you. Friends, will you reach your hands out again like this? And we'll bless them together. May your hands explore the world. May your hands say, I love you. May your hands make the world a better place. Kids here in church, you are important, and we love you. And the student and the learner in me honors the teacher and minister in each of you. And friends, will you please join in singing our kids out to classes quietly behind your mask, and they'll head, following Reverend Dana, way down to the far end of the building.
If you are joining us online and have a candle or a chalice near your computer, please get ready to light it. We invite you to type into the chat box where your chalice is lit, the street or neighborhood, or what city if you're joining us from outside of Boulder County. I'd like to invite Diana Maiden now to light this morning's chalice.
Good morning. I had two close friends as a girl growing up in Minneapolis. Roberta Bennon, who lived 6 houses down the street, and Sally McSweeney, whose house was across the alley. Today, our childhood would be referred to either as free range or neglectful, depending on one's point of view. If we were not in school, we gathered most days with other kids to roam the neighborhood, the alleyway being our freeway, leading to and through unfenced yards, down the hill to Cedar Lake, or across St. Louis Avenue to the large rail yards that still dominated the area. We swam unattended in the summer and skated on self-shoveled ice rinks in wintertime, or sledded on a treacherous hill above Cedar Lake. For all of that, I am deeply grateful. And remarkably, Sally, Roberta, and I also talked about religion, as children do, puzzling over the fact that our small sample of 3 families represented at least 4 faith traditions. Sally was Catholic. Roberta's father was Jewish. Her mother, a Lutheran, an interesting truce in their family. And I was a Unitarian. I enjoyed fish sticks on Friday with Sally, meatloaf at Roberta's house, and I went to bar mitzvahs of other neighborhood friends. I secretly regretted that there were no Unitarian foods and even a holiday I could claim. The 3 of us circled back frequently on the question of which religion was the best. Both Sally and Roberta placed great importance on life after death. The promise of heaven was vital to them. I did more listening, I think, because I had so little to counter the theologies presented to me. I was much more interested in how we lived our lives now, a perspective I'm sure I gained more by osmosis than discussion in my family. Sally and Roberta could agree on only one thing, that I, as much as they liked me, was surely going to hell. All of this is to say that I loved those girls and they me, and we hung in there to keep the friendship alive. I moved away in junior high and the connections faded. But the lesson for me was loving people can have many differing paths to express care and support. I have a more weary understanding of religious differences now, even within our own denomination. But the truth for me still holds that caring and support comes through many paths. If I listen with my heart and imagine, as Christina Rossetti wrote, tread softly, all the earth is holy ground. It may be, could we look with seeing eyes, this spot we stand on is a paradise. I light this chalice today in hopes that we continue to listen to each other with our heart and see this, our church home, as holy ground.
We now invite all those gathered in your various locations to join together in fellowship and community as we say aloud our congregation's covenant. Please repeat each line after me. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
Friends, will you join with me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, a spirit of introspection, of quietness, of letting your body come to rest and stillness, of giving space to listen to that still small voice inside. Spirit of life and love, known by many names, understood in different ways, experienced by each of us. We acknowledge that every one of us has fallen short of the person we hope to be. Every one of us has started and stopped, made wrong turns. Every one of us has spoken an unkind word, closed a door and burned a bridge, and we name it and we remember it in this moment because this is what it is to be human. And in this hour, our prayer and our hope is to be called home to ourselves again and again, to remember that the spirit of love, that the movement of compassion does not call the qualified, but qualifies the called. So may we begin again. Our words for meditation are from the poet Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You have only to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across landscapes, over prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the river. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. We'll be together in silence for 7 breaths. Ritual is outward expression of inward experience. And it moves in both directions. It comes from within us and it changes us in the process. And so each week when we gather in person, we ritually place a stone into the dirt here, representing the joys and the sorrows, the hopes and the cares, the worries and the excitements that we carry with us, made visible in front of us, placed all together instead of held on our own. This tray filled with ordinary, extraordinary dirt, the sacred earth of the Ute and Arapaho people, and the bowls with stones from Boulder Creek, the rough edges mostly smoothed by time. For those meeting together in person, I invite you to come forward as you feel moved when the music begins, silently to take a stone and place it into the earth to symbolize your joys and your cares, taking their place among a larger whole, a larger community held in the hand of the earth. And for those gathering online, I invite you, as you'd like, to share in the chat any cares, any joys you'd like to share today. To all those joys and sorrows gathered and made visible before us, we add a few others from those joining on Zoom. From Dorothy Ciarlo, who says, "Good morning from my new home at Fraser, close by with my flameless LED chalice." From Mary Deneen, who says, "Send healing energy and patience for our son, Evan, who recovers from major elbow surgery." And I'll add to that too, my wife, Terry, who's recovering from a hip replacement. All went well and fine and great, and it's just plain hard, folks. For all those blessings and concerns, as well as those that remain silently on our hearts, we hold this space with love. And thank you for the ways you bless each other. I think this may be one of the longer sermons I've preached with you all so far. So we're going to take a brief lunch break around 11:30 and then come back, and we'll keep I don't know this with you too well yet. Some congregations really worry if the service runs long. A colleague told me they had someone who came to them every Sunday, and if they ran like 2 minutes over I'm not worried about that with you all. Let me tell you about Universalism. Universalism, part of our ancestors. In a world full of dour, pessimistic Calvinists, who are entirely convinced that you and everyone you know is going to hell, utterly irredeemable in a way that no good deed could ever make up for. The Universalists said, and they say, no hell, but hope. In the 19th century, Universalism spread across the north of this country, New England, and then the Midwest, which back then was just the West. Universalist preachers would ride from town to town and plant churches, and in every place back then, preach their gospel, the good news that you wouldn't be eternally condemned to hell. Now, these Universalists in the 19th century, there are working class people, ordinary folks. They were nurses and teachers and small business owners, the occasional lawyer sort of keeping their head down. And if the Harvard-educated Unitarians were the head of our faith, the Universalists were its heart. Universalists who practiced on-the-spot ordination. None of this theological school stuff. Universalists who could fit any one of their theological propositions into a good quip. Like, Universalism means love your enemies now because you're going to be spending eternity with them in heaven. My colleague Aaron White down in Texas says, Universalism means there is no such thing as a stranger. Theological propositions like, you want to be somebody? You want to be somebody? You already are. God is love and there is no hell. It's an old Universalist catechism. God is love and there's no hell, which is enough of a sermon right there. We could just sing and sit down and be done. But the argument for Universalism, one of them, goes like this, because you should time this because I think we can do this in about 30 seconds. This is the Hosea Ballou, a 19th century Universalist, would do it like this. He'd say, you have kids? You have kids? You know kids? You love your kids? Is there anything that your kids could do where the appropriate punishment was you literally torturing them forever? I'm gonna take by your laughter, that is an obviously not. But then here's the turn that Ballou would do. He'd say, well, do you think you are a better parent to your kids than God is to you? Well, God's not torturing you forever either. Supposedly, Hosea Ballou in the mid-1800s would convert people while riding on horseback along next to them, which is like the equivalent of rolling down your window at a red light and sticking your head up. Do you have kids? Ballou was great. Ballou's dad was really worried about him having these Universalist positions. And so even when he was young, his dad asked him one day, are you reading Universalist literature again? To which Hosea Ballou replied, yes, sir, I am reading the Bible. He would have done real good on Twitter. Universalism becomes the 5th largest denomination in the United States at one point. It spreads widely by the end of the 1800s. But I don't want to oversimplify because despite being animated by this spirit of love and care and hope, these guys had bitter, ugly, mean fights with each other over how universal salvation was going to work. What were the mechanics of salvation? There were the ultra universalists like Ballou, who said no hell, period. You die, you immediately go to heaven, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Their slogan was death and glory, which sounds like it's like a tough biker tattoo, but it actually means that once you die, the love and compassion of a gentle parent God embraces you immediately, which is also awesome, but less tough, maybe. On the other hand, from the ultra universalists were the restorationists like John Murray, who founded the first Universalist church in the US in Gloucester, Massachusetts. He said, no, you die, and then you have to have some kind of like spiritual retribution or penance, and maybe that takes tens of thousands of years, and then you get to go to heaven. And these two sides fight it out and they troll each other in these bitter, personal, mean articles in competing weekly newspapers. And I say all that as a reminder that people have always fought bitterly about ridiculous things. It's not just us here. But I'm doing a big disservice by telling you the story of universalism as if it is about a theological proposition. I've been telling you all this as if this is the history of an idea. I've been telling you the theory of universalism. But here's the thing, I don't really care about the theory of universalism. I care about the practice of universalism. There's a story from that same era in the 19th century about the Unitarian William Ellery Channing, who went as a child to hear an itinerant preacher with his father. This is what Channing says, or this is what Channing's biographer says. The message of this preacher they went to hear was doctrinaire Calvinist, the theology of mainstream congregational churches. It was a theology of the first colonists in New England. It was a theology of the total depravity of mankind, the absolute fundamental, inescapable sinfulness of every single person that so permeates every pore of your being that no good can ever come and the only just punishment is eternal. Now, overwhelmed by this fiery sermon, William Ellery Channing felt, quote, a curse seemed to rest on the earth and darkness and horror to veil the face of nature. At the end of the sermon, his father remarked, "Sound doctrine, that." And his comment, his affirmation of this horrific belief made the boy believe that when they got home, the only proper thing to do would be to fall on their knees and pray for deliverance from impending doom. But instead, the family ate their usual meal, and then his father sat by the fire, puffed his pipe, and read the newspaper. William's conclusion was that he should not take so seriously what people said, but study their behavior to know what they meant. The message of universalism was not and is not that you have a get out of jail free card after you're dead. It's not a cosmic, we're all good here, just go about your business. Because the real message of universalism is not just about what's going to happen in the future. Even for those 19th century Christian universalists, it wasn't just about what's happening in the future, but what that means in the present. If all of us are worthy of salvation, if all of us are beloved, if all of us are just as human as everyone else, just as wounded, hurting, healing, bleeding as the next person, just as capable of love and transformation and transcendence, just as able to be who we are and who we're called to be, well, that's not about what happens after we die. That's about what we're going to do while we're here and what we're going to do with each other. I love history, but I don't care if you know the history of universalism. I care if we embody the present of universalism, because our history doesn't matter unless it changes our life. The stories we tell, the only difference that these stories make is how they shape our living. It's not the idea of universalism, but the practice. Not a freedom from hell, but a freedom for living. Not a freedom from punishment, but freedom to act the beloved community, the beautiful city into being right here, right now. It's not about your salvation. The most important thing, one of them about universalism, isn't just that you're worthy. It's that everyone else is too. And now we have to go around acting like it. The most important thing isn't just that you're not getting left behind. And again, this was true even for the 19th century Christian Universalists. Not just that you aren't getting left behind, but that no one is. Those Universalists weren't just talking about salvation in the future. They were preaching and teaching and living that there is a gaze which sees each of us as real. which sees in every one of us all of who we are in possibility and purpose, and speak out of their tradition in the language of 19th century Christianity to name something inseparable from being alive in the world. In the same way that the Jewish theologian Martin Buber says we travel through the world treating other people like objects, not humans, and our work is to treat each other as fully human and real as we know ourselves to be. That's universalism for this world. Or the way the 20th century Unitarian von Ogdenvogt said, the task of church, the work of church, is to become a person among people. That's universalism for this world. Universalists don't, in the end, ask you to believe in the innate goodness or the innate badness of other people, but in their innate reality. The mystic Thomas Merton wrote 70 years ago about this religious experience that he has walking down the street in Louisville, just in the middle of an ordinary day, nothing special happening. He says this, in Louisville, at the corner of 4th and Walnut, in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all these people, that they were mine and I was theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. And it was like waking from a dream of separateness. This sense of liberation from illusory difference was such a relief and a joy to me that I almost laughed out loud. If only everyone could realize this. But it can't be explained. There's no way of telling people that they're walking around shining like the sun. And then it was as if I saw the secret beauty of their hearts, the depths of their hearts, the core of their reality. If only they could all see themselves as they really are. If we could see each other that way all the time, there'd be no more war, hatred, cruelty, greed. In the Gospel of Thomas, an account of the sayings of Jesus not included in the Bible, a disciple asks, when will the kingdom come? When will beloved community? When will the beautiful city arrive? And Jesus replies, it's not going to come by watching for it. Rather, the kingdom is spread out already on the earth and people don't see it. I was suddenly overwhelmed, said Thomas Merton, with the realization that I love all these people, that they were mine and I was theirs. For in reality, we're not strangers, but dependent and interdependent on one another, tied into the whole vast network of living itself. And the question universalism poses to us here and now today, whatever the theology you hold, is this: what if we lived as if these things were already true? The oneness of humanity, the interconnection of every part to the whole, all the earth, holy ground, and we ourselves on it worthy. And the 12 steps for drug and alcohol recovery. The 4th step is to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. And then the 5th is to admit to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. And I have a friend who did this in his recovery. He finished going through what felt like this long, ugly, excruciating list of the exact nature of our wrongs. And a sponsor, the person he's sharing all this with, asks, at last, is that everything? Yeah. Congratulations, said his sponsor. You're a human being. The question is not whether we shall be ultimately saved or how, what the mechanics of it are, or even what happens then, but instead to recognize again and again that our work is to turn our faces out to each other and this world again and again, to tell our story and be witness to each other who are as broken and whole and real as we are, to bless each other and all people. That's the work of redemption. It's our work right now, to look out on the world as if we could see that every single other person is precious and irreplaceable and worthy. Because if we are worthy enough that we would be saved if hell awaited, then only you can make that real here and now for each other. Amen.
When I was a boy, each week, Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word, consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is that everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still, but now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent tear, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent tear, 'cause everything is holy now.
Thank you, Tracy. We share our plate in the month of October with Intercambio. Lisa Hughes is an intercambio volunteer and our October liaison. And we are happy to have this morning Jenny Desmond here, who's the Director of Development, who would like to tell you a little bit more.
Thank you. Good morning. It's always great to be here because there are so many familiar faces. And can you hear me okay? Good, good. So some of you are donors to Intercambio. Some of you are teach English with Intercambio. Lisa, as you mentioned, Sharon, Cynthia, Philip, Heidi, and many more that I haven't named, and we are so grateful. So Reverend, this morning you said there is no such thing as a stranger. That is a big part of who Intercambio is. It's about bringing communities together. So we train volunteers to teach English to immigrants in Boulder County, but it is really rippling out across our country and bringing belonging together, something that we saw so little of over the last several years that is starting to come back. So I'm the development director. I've been with Intercambio for 11 years, and I used to work with our students in Lafayette and Louisville, signing them up for classes, monitoring their progress. And then I was in charge of the events and now the development director for nearly 4 years. And what I've seen over these 11 years of Intercambio is I've seen how the stories that happen one-on-one or in group classes of people saying, you know, I came into this expecting this experience and I got so much more out of it. This year and a half during COVID, we moved to online classes and we thought, well, we'll do this for a couple months till we can be together again. Who knew? Right? We're still doing online classes, but what we're discovering is that community and belonging are growing even through a screen, as you see this morning, right? We're discovering respect is growing. We started a new program called Conversations on Race and Equity. And we're doing it with immigrants around the country in partnership with a group out of Washington called the Common Good Collective. And they teach a lesson about the history of racism in the US and then go into small groups. And the volunteers and the English learners talk together about what does this mean? How do they see it reflected in their home countries? And how can we grow from here? Of course, learning is happening. We have hundreds of students here in Boulder County learning, but we have over 600 partners, churches, schools, YMCAs around the country that use our curriculum. And these are things that you support when you give to Intercambio. And it even came out on NPR this week about this group in Eastern Oklahoma that are receiving a bunch of the Afghan refugees. Well, they are already partners of Intercambio. They've already been teaching Intercambio with our curriculum. And so it is Boulder's little touch with Eastern Oklahoma with Afghanistan is happening even today. And then the third thing is sustainability through innovation. Intercambio is really working on becoming a place where we don't need so much donations from the community, but we are going to become self-reliant as we do more of selling our curriculum and as we do more of creating partners around the country. So the final thing is we've created a program called CC English, the letters, confidence and connection, CC English. And anybody in the community can be a volunteer teaching English to somebody online, one-on-one around the country. So I can teach English to an Afghan refugee in New York State when I sign up through ccenglish.org or somewhere else. Or maybe I'll get surprised and find out that it's somebody in Longmont, Colorado. Anyway, so thank you so much for the difference that you make. I do have a gift for you this morning. This is a story. It's some photos and stories of a sampling of our students whose lives have been changed over the past 20 years because all of you give. And then I have some updated newsletters and I will leave those at the welcome table out front if you want to see what is the latest happening. So thank you again.
For today's offering, for those of you who are here in person, please remain seated as you are, and the ushers will come to you during the musical interlude. I encourage you to give generously. For those of you joining us remotely, you can also make a donation by using the link that's pasted in the chat, by sending a check to UUCB, or scanning the QR code that's on the slide with your mobile phone. Now may our gifts be used to enact justice, bring peace and love to the Boulder community.
Friends, there are no strangers. And whether the language is of our Universalist ancestors or the words we speak are fresh today, there are no strangers. Our worship ends and our service begins again. Go in peace and amen.
Thank you all who have gathered here this morning, in person or virtually. We invite you, those who are joining us online, to stay with us in our Zoom rooms for a time of fellowship and discussion. And for the rest of you, stay and greet one another